So joining me now to break down the latest stories and more is Rob Hadick. He's a general partner at Dragonfly. Rob, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with these elements of news. World Liberty Financial being the first one, the decentralized finance venture backed by the president, recently launching this stable coin. What does that mean for the market?
Listen, I think what's very clear is that there is regulatory acceptance and just conversation that's happening in Washington, within Congress, within the regulators, that says, hey, we want to engage with the entire crypto ecosystem. We want there to be US dollar dominance proliferated by stablecoins. We want there to be innovation in this space within the US. And it signals just this kind of vibe shift within that in Washington that brings it entrepreneurs back to the country, and we're really excited for what that means for the future of innovation here in the U.S.
GameStop, of course, another company that we follow here in the wake of this news yesterday. Those shares up about 12% pre-market, revealing that its board unanimously did approve the addition of Bitcoin as a Treasury reserve asset. What does that mean?
So usually I find the Bitcoin on balance sheet conversation to be a little silly, to be honest, right? So obviously, famously, Michael Saylor has done that with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is a tech company that now just trades in line with Bitcoin as a Bitcoin holding company, essentially. For GameStop, listen, it's a relatively small company. They do $130 million of net income. They trade at an incredibly high multiple, and they're up a lot because now they're putting Bitcoin on balance sheet. The reality is I don't think that means much for what's happening in our space, the innovation for global adoption of what we're trying to do. But maybe it means something to GameStop stock prices.
Interesting. Enough to warrant a 12% pop in shares?
I wouldn't see that today, but listen, the public market investors know more than I do.
Okay, so taking a look at cryptocurrency, we see Bitcoin trading at about just under $88,000 a token. It has pulled back along with the broader market amid some of the recent trepidation and volatility that we've seen in the wake of President Donald Trump's tariffs. How does Bitcoin trade? Is it correlated with the tech sector?
Yeah, so very clearly it's highly correlated with the tech sector. We've seen it just essentially be higher beta. So, Bitcoin is down roughly about 7% on the year. Tech stocks are down a little bit over 10%. Clearly there's been that link. Bitcoin was up much further than tech stocks in the post-Trump election phase. We've started to see that it's trading as a macro asset as more large institutional investors have had access to things like ETFs. And clearly, as that risk-on behavior comes back, when investors are more excited about post-tariffs, they should be piling into Bitcoin in the same way they are piling into the NASDAQ.
How much legs does it have? During this administration, everything that we've seemingly heard is very bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin has a lot of legs. The reality is Bitcoin is a hedge against a number of things, right? It's a hedge against just the inflation. It's a hedge against this idea that your currency or their dollar sovereignty, right? And people want access to that as a commodity, right? And so that investable asset as part of that macro bucket is something that we're seeing take a lot of hold with a lot of institutional investors.
Let's talk about another new element. Custodia Bank launching a first banked issued stablecoin. What does that mean for the industry?
So, it's obviously, for Caitlin, it's a huge win. She's been trying to get this done for a very long amount of time. This has been something that she's, very excited about. And I think for me and for the broader industry, it's, again, just a signal that the administration, that the regulators want to engage with us. That said, I don't know the network effects of liquidity, of, these stablecoins proliferating globally. Those are things like Tether and Circle already have a really big head start on. And I think it'll be hard to see how this type of banks-issued stablecoin makes headways into that market as we get better regulation like the Genius Act in Washington.
What sort of investments are you focused on at Dragonfly?
So we invest across everything. One of the things we've been most excited about, to your point, is stablecoins. That's been a place where we see just a lot of opportunity, especially in emerging markets with US dollar focus and US dollar access. I also think what's very clear is that we need better rails to bring payments on chain, to bring the global financial markets on chain. And so we focus a lot on that as well. Portfolio companies of ours like 00 have been on this program before, talking about better hardware infrastructure to do that.
Let's talk about crypto versus the dollar and what you see as perhaps even some underlying similarities this day and age.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a decoupling. Like Bitcoin is not necessarily like a US dollar. It's not going to be used for, in my mind, a medium of transaction in the same way. It is a commodity. It is of something that you want to hold, right? That said, stable coins on blockchain rails are better than a lot of traditional payment rails, bank payment rails, Swift, et cetera. They're programmable, they're cheaper, and they can be self-custodied, right? And so that's something that I think proliferates the US dollar and helps us to continue to keep dollar sovereignty globally at a time when international markets and countries like Japan and others are actually dumping US treasuries.
Rob Hadick, general partner at Dragonfly. Rob, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
It's great to have you.
You too.